Good day YouTube, TURBOTRISTAN here, or welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to give the EK4 some love with some genuine parts, just as I said we would. No corners cut here, no cheapy bits. I headed down to ELUSIVE, grabbed a whole bunch of stuff. We're going to dive into it. In this episode I'm going to teach you how to change your rocker cover gasket, the distributor O-ring, and also the VTEC solenoid gasket. Stick around, I'll walk you through it. Welcome back to the channel, everyone. Sorry it's been a while. The videos were coming through thick and fast through December, and then there was a big slow in January. And that wasn't because I was dodging making videos in January. I saw Mighty Car Mods post something about you don't make any money on YouTube in January, but I didn't even know that. So that's not why I wasn't making any videos. I was actually off sick with the virus. It wasn't fun, only lasted a couple of days, but the symptoms hung around for just over a week and a half, so I had to be in quarantine and isolation, which was fine. It just felt like I had man flu for about 3.5, 4 days. It was certainly not fun, and I do have a bit of shortness of breath from time to time. Could be because I'm getting old, getting fat, or it could be because of the virus. But anyway, I'm back at it now. Everything's all good. We are working on the EK4 today, and what we're going to be doing is just some maintenance stuff. There's a little bit of oil just down here. I am extremely sure it's coming from the VTEC solenoid just down there, because there's oil from here down to here and then leaking on the front there. Otherwise, everything else is completely clean and tidy. There doesn't appear to be any oil coming from the distributor O-ring, but I'm going to change that anyway. And for good measure, I'm going to put a brand new gasket on here. All genuine parts. I got them from ELUSIVE Racing. They even put it in a really nice box for me, but here it is here. All Honda OE parts. So that's the VTEC solenoid gasket and all new setup for the rocker cover gasket. And didn't come in a bag, but that is the distributor O-ring. So we're going to stick that in. And I was stockpiling parts for this car. I do have an EK front white line sway bar, which I'll check that up on Marketplace. I just reminded myself. And I do have some king springs for this car, which dropped the car down around 1.5 inches, which would have been a nice height down to here. But they're also on Marketplace. And the reason for that is this car's actually now sold. Sold it last night. One of the conditions was that I fit the parts that I just bought. I went and bought those yesterday from ELUSIVE. Kenny gave me a really good deal. Shout out to Andy as well for helping out. Top bloke. But we went and grabbed a whole bunch of parts, stick those in there. I was about to pull the trigger on a full set of stainless steel headers, 4-into-1 headers, and do the whole exhaust and just start to spend money on the car, but somebody reached out. I didn't even advertise the car, and they offered me some money for this, so we're going to let it go. As you can see, I don't have any space. The engine mounts have turned up for the ED, so they should be here early next week, and I can put the engine in. Still rocking over there. I've got to do work on the little ripper to get that going because we need to sell that. It's for sale if you know anyone. It's a B16A, so basically the running gear from an EK4 in a car that weighs half as much. That's why it's a little ripper. So I need to get that up and running and out of here and sold, and then I can bring in our other projects out of the weather. So it was short-lived. I only drove this car once from Brighton, Melbourne, down here to Springvale, and this car drove immaculate, amazingly smooth, quiet, solid, absolutely perfect and stock. But now it's going to a new home, a bit of a collector from what I can tell from the guy's Facebook quick stalk. He seems to collect lots and lots of Civics, so it's going to a good home. It also means it frees up time, money and space for me to finish other more exciting projects, although this would have been great fun and exciting. New things coming in 2022. So I've never done a VTEC solenoid gasket before. As you'll know, and I mentioned in the last video, I don't own a VTEC car currently, although technically I do, but I don't. Long story. So I'm going to change that out now. I'll show you guys how to do it. Seems like it's pretty easy. And then we'll do the rocker cover. I'll teach you how to do that. That sounds really simple and mundane, but I've been doing a few cash jobs for people lately. Just things like maintenance, servicing, getting cars ready for roadworthy, fitting suspension, doing guard rolling, lowering cars. So you'll see my ads on Marketplace in Melbourne if you're around. Jump on, help me out. I've got a workshop. I might as well use it doing cashies after hours at night time after my normal job. So saving up to spend more money on the K series to make that thing an absolute ripper. I'm starting to ramble now, so I'll get stuck into the work, but long story short, I think I can teach you guys something about how to change these gaskets yourself. I see a lot of mistakes. One car that I changed the gasket on, the actual top of the engine, and it was a VTEC Integra, the whole top of the rocker cover was just full of silicone everywhere, just oozed inside. The person smeared silicone the entire way around the rocker cover. And I'll also share with you my tips on changing the distributor O-ring so that you don't muck up the timing. And we'll just get it all done. I'll get set up, put the camera down, come back to you in a sec, won't be long. So what you're gonna need for this job are some very, very simple hand tools, nothing too big or monstrous. What I've got here is a 1/4 inch drive with a small extension. Doesn't matter if you do or don't have that. The reason why you only use a 1/4 inch drive is so you can't get too much leverage, force, or strength behind it, because these do snap. I spent an entire day drilling out and re-tapping studs inside the top here. The actual ones inside the rocker cover broke off, and they actually hold down the cam bolts or the cam caps. So you'll need that, a 12mm, that's for the distributor, or you can just use a 12mm ring ratchet, ring spanner. Don't try to do it with the open end of it because you'll probably round off the bolt. You can also use a scribe. You use that to mark the position of the distributor. You'll need a razor blade or a scraper to scrape the old gasket goo off. And you'll need some new gasket goo. I always use the grey one. That's what the color of the Honda Bond is. If you can get Honda Bond, get that, it's even better. Another thing you can use, and I recommend using, is a colored texter or a paint pen to mark the location of the distributor as well. I don't like to do that because it would stick out like dog's balls in your engine bay, a big yellow stripe, but I'll do it on this one. It can always be wiped off. It's just a matter of putting a mark across both of those surfaces so you can line them up again afterward. So I'll put this on a tripod so I can use both my hands, and we'll get to work undoing all of this. It's important to make sure you put the earth straps back on, otherwise you'll have trouble starting your car. And I've seen guys now starting to make new earth lead kits, which isn't a bad idea, just to help earth out the motor. And yeah, these ones look pretty old and crusty, so good idea to replace those. All right, so first thing I'm gonna do is take my yellow pen and mark a line on the top of here so that I can line up the timing again on the Civic once I put it all back together. There's 3 points here of contact, but as long as the top one is lined up, all the rest of them will be as well. So I'll sit that off to the side. Second thing we're going to do is take our 10mm, undo the earth strap, and then start undoing everything. It doesn't matter which order you do them in, just undo them all. The next thing I'm going to buy when I go to Autobarn is a little magnetic dish so I can put all the nuts and bolts in, and they all magnetise to the dish, and the dish magnetises to the car and I don't lose them. the one thing that I don't have yet. So take out the cover and you'll find there are 4 more bolts, or 5 more bolts underneath there. Actually, it's only 4 that you need to undo. The 5th one is for the spark plug lead clip. With the spark plugs, I don't disconnect them off the distributor. You can if you mark them or remember which one goes where, but I don't. I just take them out. Just flop those off to the side, keep them all attached to the distributor. And the last thing I forgot to tell you that you need is a set of pliers, any kind. You just need to undo that oil breather line, pop that off and down to the side. The power steering hose bolted on as well. Gosh, I'm used to working on cars that have been pulled apart 100 times. This one is so minty fresh and standard that it's got all the bolts everywhere. Don't worry that we just lost a bunch of washers because they are all getting replaced. So over to the underside of the rocker cover, you'll need to then pick out these, which are the spark plug O-rings. Now the person who fitted this one up last time seemed to have a decent idea of where to stick the silicone, and you can see it just here. So in each of these corners is where you stick the silicone on the cam lobes there. You don't need to stick it really anywhere else. If you really wanted to, you could put a little bit on the underside of these spark plug O-rings. This is where they actually leak the most, is down here and inside the spark plug. So not a bad idea to put some on the back of this. But everything else, they've done a pretty good job on this one. There wasn't, you can see they've put a little bit of silicone along the inside of here. It's totally unnecessary. You'd only do that if you couldn't afford to replace the gasket, which if you're gonna go to the trouble of pulling it all apart and re-siliconing it and buying silicone, you may as well buy a gasket. So don't skimp out on that, guys. Make sure you clean out all this stuff. All right, so off camera, I've given this a clean up and I've used a bit of wax and grease remover just on the end of a rag, and I've cleaned this surface. It's perfectly smooth and dry. Where you want to put the silicone is just a little dab about half the size of a pea in each of these corners where the gasket meets up, and that'll squish into place. You don't want to put it so much that it squishes out into the cylinder head, just enough on the outside so that when it's situated in there, it squeezes into all the corners. And the other thing you want to do is just put a very thin smear around each of the spark plug O-ring positions, and then that way you won't end up with spark plug holes that are full of oil, which you see a lot of unmaintained D series and B series. You pull a spark plug out and the whole thing's full of oil. The rest of this engine is totally clean and tidy. I've just given it a wipe just to get off a bit of the carbon sort of deposits around all of the nuts and bolts. So I've just given that just a wipe. The oil is really clean and golden inside this motor. There's nothing down in anywhere near any of the valves, so it's all good to go. I'll grab the rocker cover, show you how to put the gasket on, and then I'll teach you my trick on how to make sure it doesn't leak ever again. Well, not ever again, but for a long time. Well, the rocker cover has been pressure washed, degreased and cleaned and dried out in the sun for about an hour on a 40-degree day. So nice and dry, nice and clean. Again, I would have loved to have refurbished this. Looks like over time someone's tried to touch this up with a brush. Hasn't quite gone perfectly, but otherwise it's in really awesome, perfect condition. We'll flip it over. We take the brand new gasket. Now I've had this sitting out, sort of laid out flat for about an hour. just so it goes into shape. They're always stored, for some reason, scrunched up in a ball. You can shove them straight in, but I always like to just lay them out flat first for a while, so they can sort of spring back into their shape. Press it in everywhere. Being a genuine gasket, goes in absolutely perfect. I have had a couple of issues, even on the same engine with the same rocket cover, the gaskets don't always line up, which is just really, really weird. Take the spark plug O-rings, press those in. Now the benefit of putting the silicone on first and letting it sort of tack off, I guess, and just sit there, means it begins to sort of go off and start to form a gasket layer. Now the trick is, when you put it on, put all the nuts and bolts and everything in, tighten them up finger tight, and then just leave that for 20 minutes or so, so it all squishes into place. That way when you tighten it down fully, your silicone doesn't just splooge straight out the sides and go into your engine. It's sort of already half set in place. Don't need to leave it too long, but a little while is a good thing. And then as long as those are pushed in nice and firm all the way and being genuine, they won't pop out. Just a matter of flipping it over and slamming it on. Take our brand new seals or washers and drop those into place. Now they'll help locate the cover. And being that they're nice, new and fresh, it'll stop the oil popping out into the valley. So those are all finger tight now. I'm just going to leave those while I get to work on doing the VTEC solenoid. So now we're going to get to work on the VTEC solenoid. Now to do that, there is a couple of, I'm pretty sure there's 3 10mm bolts, and that holds that on. First you'll need to disconnect the plug. So pop that off, pull that down, and also you can lift it off its little perch. Makes it a bit easier to separate. And just loosen those off. Boom, and there we go. We can see the culprit there leaking at the bottom. Fair bit of oil on there, so simple matter of change out that gasket. But while we're here and it's easy to get to, I'm going to take off the distributor. I'll clean them all up together. So there's a 12mm just at the bottom. Loosen that one off. 12mm at the top. Now you'll need to unplug your distributor as well. So just push down. All right, so with the distributor, I'm going to try and remove it without removing the airbox. When you pull it out, make sure you don't change the orientation of where the distributor plugs into the back of the cam. Might be a bit difficult to do, and if you bump it, just try and remember where it is. I'm going to mark it with a pen. Just like that. Set that down there. Now you'll need your little pick again, just to pop off the O-ring. Now these get flattened and squared off over time. This one was ready to go anyway, it just snapped. So it's really brittle and hard. So that was time to replace that. This one couldn't be easier. All you do is slide it back over, back into place, and that's done. Same deal for the VTEC solenoid. Just give that a nice good clean up. Use your pick and pop that bad boy out of there. It's again brittle and hard and yep, gonna snap. So it's just as well that we replace that, because it would not have passed its roadworthy inspection. Now, because of how sensitive these items are, I'm gonna just clean the front surface with just a dry, clean cloth, put the new gasket in, and then once I've got it all back on and sealed up, I'll spray some degreaser on there and clean up the area. But this one is pretty self-explanatory. Grab the new gasket. It can only go in one way, so just press that in. So nice and juicy compared to the crusty old one that was in there. Now you don't need any gasket goo or silicone or anything on this. It'll just make things worse and no doubt ruin your solenoid. Now that the distributor is all sorted, I'll give this surface a clean as well. And it's ready to go back on. And there we go. Make sure you align that back up perfectly. Lock that down, you don't want that moving, that's for sure. So off camera, I've tightened down all of the bolts now. There's quite a bit of oil which leaked down the front of the motor once I took off the VTEC solenoid, so I'm going to clean that up now. I've gone around all of the rocker cover bolts and just given them a hand tighten. There's no need to over tighten these, I can't stress that enough. I'm sure there's specific torque settings somewhere online. I don't bother with them, I just go to just tight, tiny squeeze more, that's it. You don't need to swing on them and tighten them up. They will snap off, you will be in a world of pain. Next job is to put back all of the plug leads, sorry. So bang that guy down there, clip him into his little house, pop him in. And the reason why I don't take these off is because I'm silly and I just like to put them all in order. So as they are length is what hole they go in. Can't really stuff that one up. And that way you don't have a misfiring engine. Pop that down there. Plug him back into this line. Yep, see, there you go. Done. Just like so. Make sure they're all seated and locked on. Then we can put this guy back in. Not as crucial, this guy, but may as well put it back in. And again, doesn't have to be monster tight. take the cover. All right, it's all done. I've got to go now and just degrease the front of the motor and pressure wash out the last of the oil. But that is a job done right, job done properly. Hope you guys learnt something there. You don't have to go crazy with the silicon, and really straightforward to swap out the Dizzy and the VTEC solenoid. So I'm glad I've done that now. I can say I've done it. It was really, really easy. So, you know, there's no reason why you can't do that at home. It's a good idea to keep up the maintenance and just make sure that there's no oil leaks. Your VTEC is cracking as hard as ever. If there's any leaking from your VTEC solenoid, it actually either won't work because it runs on oil pressure, or it won't come on as hard. So now we're gonna get the full effects of VTEC. It's gonna crack hard, it's gonna work. So it's getting full pressure now. But that's that. It'll be sad to see this car go. I was really looking forward to ripping it at the track, modifying it a little bit, but we need to make space, we need to make room, and we need to make money to do the K-swap turbo on my EK. So this one has to go. These are getting very, very rare here in Australia. There wasn't that many of them sold. Most of them have been trashed, smashed, chopped up, or hacked up at some stage in their life. So to find a good original one that is true and honest, even with its bad points, which is the flaky clear coat, it's still hard to find. So this one went for a premium price, so we have to let it go. I honestly think if we kept the car for another year or two, it would probably come close to maybe doubling in value again. But you know, you never know with these things. Who could have predicted that a car like this would be worth, you know, close to 20K in 2022. But they're getting up there now, so either hold on to them, diamond hands, hodl onto it, or sell them, make some money while you can, level up if you will, while you can, or hang on to them. But yeah, you know, I'm sad to see it go, but I'm not sad for the space that I'm getting, and I'm not sad for the other projects that we get to finish. Thanks for watching. Hopefully this one wasn't too boring for you. I know everybody loves my how-tos and sharing knowledge and everything like that. Feeling much better now. So just everyone take care of yourself, stay clean, stay healthy, and we'll see you in the next video. Cheers.